Here we go.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Gabrielle Barzaghi. The three of us want to thank Jane Deering for her help and support, and a big thanks to Randy Carr, who helped us organize all the pre-show information and for helping during the opening and for helping me hang my big grid and with all the schlepping. Randy is going to time the talks and make sure none of us gets carried away. Okay? Each of us will speak for about 10 to 15 minutes, 15 max, and during Susan's talk, are we going to go straight in there?
Well, I'm gonna have people look at the work here, but then we'll move.
We're going to move at some point into the second room where the rest of her work is.
And your work.
And my work, yes. Anyway, I wanted to show my small drawings that make up the big grid for a very long time, and no one ever said yes. And I thought I might show them in this room on these walls in winter by myself. And I had this little fantasy that no one would come in and I could just sit in here Sunday afternoons and commune with it. So Jane, and I never really got around to asking her, but then she expanded the gallery, and I thought, oh, I better do something. And I immediately thought of Ann Ledy and Susan Erony. And I was fortunate that they both said yes to this drawing show. So now Ann will talk.
The funny thing is we're all seasoned speakers, but we're all nervous.
We're all very
So maybe I'll just relax with that. Thank you for all being here. I'm going to talk formally about my work, which will guide us through the next steps here. So these are my drawings. These drawings are in the spirit of a Zen Enzo. I'm going to quote Wikipedia's definition of an Enzo. An Enzo is a sacred symbol in Zen Buddhism, representing enlightenment, strength, the universe, and the void. It is typically a hand-drawn circle, closed or open, recreated with a single stroke in one breath. It serves as a visual manifestation of a particular moment in time, embodying concepts of fullness, emptiness, and imperfection. The act of creating an Enzo is itself a meditative practice, which emphasizes the mind-body connection and the acceptance of the present moment as it is. In art and aesthetics, an Enzo exemplifies the aesthetic principles of wabi-sabi, a Japanese philosophy that finds beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. In my own words, my line drawings are transference of experience into abstraction. They are akin to a contour line drawing in that they describe the edge of the shape in space with a singular contour line, void of shading, value, or color. The negative space within the shape can be read as positive or negative, as a solid or a void. Physically, the actual speed of my line can be read. The line is drawn with intention and keen concentration. It is a singular physical motion that cannot be repeated. Consequently, it is self-referential. It exists independently in time and space. I describe myself as a formalist. I have a robust academic background in perceptual drawing from observation, which I taught for many, many years. By definition, perceptual drawing is a means of drawing with the use of visual drawing tools, the likeness of with the use of visual drawing tools, the likeness of three-dimensional objects and a two-dimensional drawing space become real. That experience has not only informed all of my artwork, but is what I think about in terms of what the three of us have in common. Essentially, it is the basis for understanding and creating a composition. What differentiates my particular drawings here today from the perceptual world is the absence of a narrative or recognizable images. The rich tradition of an Enzo circle came home to me as a consequence of my travels as an academic working in Kanazawa, Japan, Seoul, Korea, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia in the 90s. I am not a practicing Buddhist. However, I feel a strong kinship to the Japanese aesthetic found in calligraphy and Zen gardens. and I have had the good fortune of returning independently to Japan numerous times. These 8 drawings here were done in 2 different concentrated blocks of time. It would be fair to say that only 2 out of every 15 of these drawings survive my discerning eye. The success of any one of these drawings is based on how the negative space and positive space supports the line. The joy is in doing, letting go, and accepting imperfection. These drawings are a numbered series titled Dance, 2018 and 2019. It was great fun to have this opportunity. Where's Gabby? I thank you so much to have these on the walls. And I want to thank Gabby again for including me in this exhibition with Susan. It's been a great honor to show these 2 fabulous artists. And we have so much in common and so much different. That's been our dialogue. So I'm going to open up, how many minutes, how am I doing? To some questions. And then we're going to move on. But I'm open to questions.
Can you talk about what tool you're using?
Oh, my brush is sitting, Jerry, right behind you. Thank you, ginger pen. So, yes, thank you. So, thank you for that question. I'm going to put this on here. So this is a Japanese brush. This is horsehair. And this is the actual brush that I used. And these drawings are done, it's a very different action than working with something on the wall this way. It's done with a low table, and it's physically, it's right here, and it's like about like that. And it's when my relationship physically, that I mentioned these are dance and they're numbered, yes. It is a physical action in response to the paper. And there's a ceremony, if you will, kind of how I experience and accessing that paper. Good question. And this brush, when you weight it, traditionally in ends it was done with Japanese India ink. I moved away from that because I wanted a little more viscosity. So this is acrylic. It's golden, Mars, I love Mars black. But I control the viscosity with water. So I have a pretty good idea what kind of trail. Whereas India ink, because it's big, I would lose, it would become much more transparent. It would change what happens on the paper. Other questions?
So do you look at the paper while you're dancing? Or
The paper talks to me. That sounds crazy, but it does,
no,
I swear.
no,
And
but your eyes are engaged.
it's like there's literally a ceremony that the ink, the paint is here, and I stand, and it's like, and there's this moment of, okay, now. It's like now. And then it's over. And like I said, 2 out of 14, 15 work. So what I do when I complete them, I put them, I love having them on the floor. So so they'll be in proximity to me. And I'll look at what's happened next to me. And then there's this whole kind of re-entry in that time and space. Yeah, yes.
So I was going to ask a question that you might have answered already. Do you get into a kind of meditative state?
Yeah.
when you're doing
I could not walk into the studio next door and do this. It is not, it requires, and it's like, and these were done in 2 different occasions, 2 years apart, in fact. There are a few more in the drawer. And they were days where I was thinking in particular about the significance of exactly why I was in that studio space. And I had this desire to go and celebrate it. And it was a very particular, I could not have done it the next day. It was just a sense of this was the time and the moment, because it is about time and place, yeah. Jerry?
Couple of questions. So it's very performative, that's what I'm taking.
Yeah, it's a great word, good word, yeah.
Yeah.
Did everyone hear that? Performative, yeah.
And at the same time, being is so quick, do you feel like you're not used to something being over this quickly in your work? I mean, it's like usually...
Those of you that won't know my other work, which is highly analytic, and the drawing is like, versus this.
Much more labor
But,
intensive,
yeah.
where this is like,
Yes.
you know, it's over. And as fast as you started, it's over. Is that, do you feel a sense of loss when...
Oh, that's interesting. No. And I don't feel a sense of loss when they don't work. There's a celebration with that moment of just being that present. So the law of whether or not it works is less important than just the action and engaging. Great question. And then thinking, those of you that know my post-minimalist analytic work on grids, the circle and the square has always been present, and those drawings are, instead of this, it's like this concentrated circle, but I'm equally present there, it's just a different sense of time. It's easier for me to access that slower manipulated when I have my grid and my pattern there, yeah. Yes.
I'm curious that you mentioned that these are devoid of narrative. Is that what you said?
I did use it. Sure.
However, I can't help but find just rich narrative work. And
So the beauty
ideas and emotion coming out of
Well,
these.
thank you. The beauty of showing work is what maybe why I like to do it, is to hear how people respond and what they bring to it. So when I say devoid, I'm not telling you what it is. Someone else came in here and I'm not going to tell you what animals they saw in here, but because that's all you'll see if I tell you. So it's not that I'm prescribing that it be something in particular. So formally, when I talk about when something works or not, it has to do with how the relationship of this mark hits the page, and then where you take it is a gift to you, if you will.
It is a gift.
Thank you. Yes. This is a master of a real Enzo, so.
Yesterday we were talking about directionality of the brush.
What Jay said yesterday, we were talking, I've got 5. Is that it? I'm done?
No, you've got 5.
Oh, okay. My timer over there. Jay said, yesterday we were discussing the direction of the brush. I wanted people here and.
Well, when you just demonstrated quick little Enzo, you were using it clockwise. And these were done counterclockwise.
So when Jay and I have had fun talking about this, because he is wedded to a very serious discipline with rich history that would be fun to talk to him about. A traditional Enzo is done in this direction. And we're standing here, and I'm right-handed, and I said, this is weird. Now, if you're right-handed and I move this way, I move outside my body. But for some reason, I've been doing them this way, which means I cross my body. Which we haven't figured out what that means, but is a very different relationship of me in an action and in space. And which is, yeah, it was in our conversation.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I know. And it was like, wow, I'm going, that's really interesting, because it's like a very different thing than, with the sweep. Jerry.
So just one more. So in East and West enclosure, and he could probably speak a lot more to it than I can, they go from left to right. They go, where in West enclosure, from right to left, horizon lines.
Yeah.
So was that something you were thinking?
Well, interesting you bring this up, because I was a figurative painter, big Baroque sweeping figures. I taught the figure for years, from a perceptual drawing of the figure. When I spent time in Asia, started spending time in Asia, and the calligraphy influenced me, of course, and the grid, I was really interested in perception and how we experience. We move left to right, and I started doing materials that were moving in multiples left to right, and then I reversed it to see what would happen, which forced the analytic work to shift and change, because it changes your relationship to how you experience that time. And that was a very big part of process. So I used process to alter how I was thinking about the picture plane. And interestingly, I was also working on tables. I moved away from the wall. Most recently, if you've seen my big paintings, they were on the wall, which is also, so I'm playing with my own history and changing it out. And the great thing is, at this point in time, I can do whatever the hell I want. So. Which is true. Anyone else?
One little technical question. When I saw you demonstrate how you use the brush, you were holding the handle like this. Is that how you use it when you paint?
Yeah, it's physically, yes. It's just, it's like physics. It's like, it's like a stir. It's just, it's very,
Part of your arm.
It's an extension. Very good point. So those of us that taught drawing, when you don't do this, it's always the extension of the arm. So it's that movement. Yeah. Great questions, people. So Susan, you're on.
Okay.
It's all yours. Thank you very much.
So this is going to be a little awkward because my work is in this room and the other room, and Gabrielle Barzaghi's work is in the other room. So we discussed, the three of us discussed whether I should talk very much in here, and sort of decided that we're all going to have to move, we're going to have to schlep chairs. Maybe I should just say a couple of words in here and direct you to the work of mine in here, and then we'll move to the other room and I'll do the main part of my talk. So without talking about anything else, there are a few pieces in here that are mine, and those are the three above the mantelpiece and one in the back of the room of a bug on a collage. All the work I've done in this show is collage work and drawing. So I'll talk more about that in the other room. But for now, what I'll say about these is that they may be the more complex pieces that are this size that I've done for this show. And they're really coming, I think, from a somewhat different place than Ann's work, in that as you described your work, Ann, it's very gestural, it's very quick. My work is kind of drudgery, and I take a really long time to do it, and it's not gestural. And one of the wonderful things about being in this show with both Ann and Gabrielle, whom I'm also very grateful to for inviting me to do this, is that all three of our work is very, very different. And yet, we all feel that it sort of sits well together. For some reason, I'm not sure why. I don't know why these don't conflict with this, but they don't seem to. And maybe the answer is because they're so different. Anyway, these are thistle plants. What I did was think about these as the main object in each. So this is thistle plants, that's a holly fern, and that one over there is, oh God, what is it? I don't remember what it is. I don't even remember what it is, and that was part of the characteristic of this work.
Canadian vervain.
Yes, that is what it is. Thank you. Oh, it's there. Yes. Would you please read what I wrote?
Can we ask a question now, or should we wait until?
You can ask a question now, and then we'll go in the other room.
This is a fairly simple question, or maybe not, but I saw the cutouts in your house.
That's right.
And and I'm fascinated by the process by which you made them. Did you apply them and then draw on them, or did you?
Both.
Both?
Well, I drew.
Talk a little about how
Okay,
you
I can do that in here. Basically, what I did was a series of drawings of bugs and floral things. And after I drew them, I thought, this is nice and it's been great, but it's not enough. And I'm attached to canvas. I never feel like I finish anything, or very rarely do I finish anything on paper itself. So I kind of had to put them on canvas. So what I did was do the drawings in graphite, cut them out with little scissors, which was incredible fun, and play with them on a canvas background. So I prepared a bunch of canvases, painted them gray to make a neutral background for the collage work, and then applied the cutout pieces, which were my drawings, which felt very good because I've done a lot of mixed media work, and I had done it with my own photographs, but I'd never done it with my own drawings. And that felt like a whole new direction and new kind of opening for me, because I love to draw. So I cut them out, glued them down on canvas once I had decided on the combinations I wanted, and then drew into them more. The color all happened after they were glued down. And the white around the imagery also happened after I glued them down, so I was drawing around everything.
Colored pencils, or you say you drew the color? What
Yes, I'm sorry, colored pencils.
Wow.
And the background is the gray paint with white pencil over it, sometimes a little charcoal if I wanted to bring the imagery forward more. So I wanted the background to be darker. And I wanted to show also, I wanted the texture that the pencil made over the paint, which you don't get just from the paint. I mean, not by itself. And the thing was that the paint was acrylic, and then the pencil was Prismacolor, which is a wax-based pencil. So I never got and didn't want a uniform, a uniform surface, of white. And I'm being told we should move into the other room. So apparently I only have 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna trash this and just talk in general. Basically, for those of you who have known my work, which is probably a lot of you in here, I've done work about social issues most of my art life, and I guess people have called it political art, though I've never thought of it that way, really. But after this year's 2024's election and our new administration starting in 2025, I really hit a wall because I didn't know what to do. Most of the work I've done has been on history or the aftermath of history or addressing places that I wasn't, like Rwanda or the former Yugoslavia, Stalin's Gulag was history, but it was all dealing with what I thought of as crimes against humanity. And this year, I did not feel so safe doing that. But I also felt that I'm just too close to what's going on in our own country to be able to comment on it. I really feel that I need some distance to say anything artistically about those kinds of issues. Otherwise, I have no objectivity. I don't want to make propaganda. I didn't want to make anything sensational. So in February, I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have an art habit. And so, I need to do something. And I thought, well, I haven't drawn in a long time, and I'm not a regular sketcher because I find it very hard to sketch and not finish it as something, as a finished work of art. So the last piece I've done that was addressing a social issue, which I did finish this year in 2025, was this piece called Migration. And it's basically about immigration and about climate migration and about how people, like my own family, I grew up in an immigrant household, had to leave their homes. They didn't want to leave their homes. They were forced to leave their homes, and that's happening all over the world today. But now no one wants them. And my family at least had a place to go. And were able to come here, some of them, not all, and to make a life for themselves. And so I felt a real need to address that in my work this year, and that's what this piece is about. And what I just have to tell everyone is that the top of what I think of as the sky is pieces of wasp's nest. Because I wanted to do something symbolic about the fact that there was danger, and wasps are dangerous. So, but maybe because if there's some beauty in it, that's a little bit of a bright spot. The other work, which is on this wall, and then on the back wall, the window wall, is again going back to the collage and drawing work I did for this show. And these are all like, let's see, 9 by 12 inches height before width. And again, they were just done to save my sanity, really. That's what the drawings were for. But once I started to do them, I don't think I said this in the other room, stop me if I did, but I really loved the process. You know, there's something very calming and magical about drawing. And that's what was so great about being in this show. And I thought, oh, a drawing show. Well, I'm drawing, isn't that convenient? But, 5 more minutes. Great. Thank you. So, as I said before, you know, it wasn't enough just to do the drawing, so I did the other stuff. I made the canvases, I glued the pieces down, but there was a lot of chance involved in what I ended up with. And it's rare. It's very rare for me that I have fun making art. And these were fun. And I'm looking forward to continuing doing something that's fun in art, I must say. But you know, it's a hard time, I think, to be an artist. You know, I have all of these questions because I think maybe too much about the role of art in society, what it's good for, what it means, and so I don't know if that'll be enough. I don't know how I'll go in the future. But for now, at least I have a place to escape from what's going on in the world and, you know, genocide and starvation everywhere. So I should stop and ask if there are any questions. And
When you're doing these collage-based artworks, are you looking at an image of the plants that you're drawing, or are you looking at the plants themselves?
no, these are all, I'm looking at images. I'm looking, in fact, specifically in these pieces at photographs done by a German photographer named Karl Blossfeld, who lived from 1865 to 1932. And he did these magnified images of tiny parts of plants and leaves and blew them up for botanical reference. So they were used by one specific professor, and then Blossfeld himself became a professor. And so they were amazing images because they were images like we don't see, mostly, not so much the leaves, but the flowers and the stems. We don't see them the way he photographed them. We don't see them that way in real life. So it was absolutely from photographs, but I was really trying to look for things that gave me wonder. And most things in nature give me wonder, but these just put me through the roof. And the bugs that I drew were also from photographs. You know, from one of those sort of children's books of photographs of bugs so you can identify them when you go out. So, yes.
So this work is very reminiscent of what was going on during COVID with most creatives. Because people were doing one of two things. Either they were getting very retrospective, which I'm seeing in your work, or they were making work that meets the moment, both politically, socially, whatever.
Yeah.
And it looks like you've kind of touched on both of those things. One thing that I can see that comes through very strongly in the work is your love for drawing. Yeah, I mean, it's quite evident.
I do love gardens. I don't have a garden.
No, I didn't think of drawing. I said drawing.
Oh.
Drawing. And maybe gardens too. Yeah.
Growing. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is kind of organic what's going on.
Absolutely. Yes.
Susan,
Yes. Hi, Rebecca.
couple minutes.
Okay. Did you want to ask something, or you just say hello? Hi, Peter.
I'm sorry to keep asking questions.
No, please.
But, I'm fascinated by this painting and all the skill that goes into all of the things that you've done here. But I'd really love you to just describe what you were thinking about as this work of art developed. I'm particularly fascinated by the way the surface kind of seems to be wiped away, and there's this grid underneath, almost as if our lives are being wiped away. And then there are the lines that go like that. Would you just talk about what you were thinking as it developed for you?
Sure. This piece I began, oh God, probably 4 years ago. And I began it by, it was another time where I wasn't sure what I was doing. And so what I do at times like that often is decide to make a surface, the most beautiful surface I can make, just to please myself. And that's where this started. So it's layers and layers and layers of cross-hatching white paint, white acrylic paint, with acrylic medium in between to give some depth. What makes it look, at least the background part, a little wiped out is that then I drew over it in white pencil. So I got rid of some of the distinction of the cross-hatching and made it more blurry so it would go into the background. I then drew this thing. And, you know, I was starting to think about the world as a place and as a collection of places that people were being forced to leave. And I was looking at maps. And so what I was doing in this area was, as far as I knew at the time, creating a map that was an imaginary place, but a place that people would want to leave, or that they would have to leave. And I have to say, you know, sometimes I really start out knowing exactly what I want to address. Other times I rely a lot on my unconscious. And so through the process of doing this, the things came out that I was thinking about. Like I said, my family, leaving, looking for a new home, not finding one. And I decided that people needed a path. So that's what these lines are. They're a path for people to follow, and you can't really see it, but there's a lighter up area up here, so I thought they could walk through, literally walk through here and go up there. But of course then they hit that ceiling with wasps' nests, which is the lack of welcoming. That's so prevalent now. Okay. That's it. You're up. I
have to confess, I didn't write anything down. I did write it down, but I went afterwards. So I thought I would talk about this one since this obviously is the biggest. And it's called The Nightly News. And I've been working on it on and off for about 7 years, and I'm adding to it periodically. It's graphite pencil, and sometimes I use a little bit of graphite powder, and it's on Yupo synthetic, which is a kind of printer's, it's not paper, but it's a paper-like object that they use for tags and labels. And it's very, very sensitive. It's very smooth, but it has a lot of very nice drag, if you like to draw. And you can't really erase very well, so that's usually a major problem for me, but I decided I didn't care. And I would erase and there'd be like big things on it, because it disturbs the surface. So, I don't know, how do you start? I think I just started because I like to draw, and I've drawn on this paper before, and I had a bunch of paper cut to this size for some reason, I don't know why. And I just started to draw one day, and I think, I don't remember which was the first one, but I think it was, I think I started like this. Where's the other horse? Oh, this one. And anyway, I started and I realized at a certain point, I kind of just make it up as I go along, but I have like my horse and my toy horse and stuff. And I kind of realized that what I was actually drawing was like people in their backyards during COVID. But actually, I'm going to back up. This was later. The first ones I did were these. This is why you want notes, right? Were these sort of images of people traveling, and I did it when, there's a lot of news about migrants drowning and people leaving their countries because they weren't safe. But like again, I don't really know that that's what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden I'm doing it. And at a certain point, I kind of thought, oh, this is, the news, because you sit there and you're thinking about everything, and I'm always musing on, people, places, and things, and what's happening in my family history, and that, of course, will come out. So at a certain point, I was working with that, and I worked very intensively. When I first started, I didn't really have any other projects going, so I worked for a number of weeks. And then then COVID happened, and that's when I started doing like these backyard scenes of children getting whipped into shape. And pictures like, I was thinking about backyards because I was walking down the street and seeing neighbors with their children, and I've never seen them out in their yards with their children. And I was kind of thinking of like these horse ones of like your brother gone bad, when you're out there with a horse and they're galloping around with no saddle, and you're standing there watching going, oh no. So they're funny, but they're also like kind of war drawings in a lot of ways, I think, for a lot of them. I kind of, here's another, this is departure or leaving, that's letter home. So of course the news has just been dreadful for years now, and pig riding, which God knows where that came from. I had Holy Fools, and again, I don't know, you just start, it takes you somewhere. So when I start, I don't really know what I'm going to draw. I usually just start, and one thing leads to another. You draw one thing, you draw another thing, and then you get some idea of something. But it's never really planned out terribly. I mean, you're planning, because obviously, you're composing things, and I can't race. So I do have to kind of, plan a little bit, but I don't really know. You have your primary parts and your secondary objects, like the big stuff, the primary, the secondary, the tree, the grass, the shadow, and the atmosphere is kind of the last thing you're thinking about, So they all have very, I try to make different, air spaces in the back there. It's really, it's very pleasurable to draw, I like to talk about drawing. It's just, that pencil on that paper and making all these subtleties, at the very end. They take a long time to do. You don't always finish them right away. And when I started doing them, I have a table that I work at for these and a small wall behind me, and I finished one to put it up. I just kept doing that until I had them all jammed in, like that part. And I finally had to face back, I had to move it across the room. So I did do that, and at that point, they weren't really sequential anymore. So this is not sequential. At a certain point, I had to really move them, and I had to arrange them. And the last ones that are more recent, this is Pandemic Pests. So, I had a little, everyone's they're puppies. The last ones, most recent ones I did was when Russia invaded Ukraine. So that's one, here's the other one. Well,
Down below.
what was that?
Right down here.
This one.
Yeah.
So this one I did when Russia and I don't know, they entered Chernihiv, Ukraine, and that really shocked me because during the Russian Civil War, my grandparents' estate was in Belarus, and they were forced out of there when their house was nationalized. And of course, the men, my grandfather and great uncle, were fighting in the Civil War, so my grandmother and her children ended up in this town, which was recent, the beginning of the recent war was invaded and whatever. So my grandmother was living there, and my great uncle Boris, her brother, was on leave, and in the morning someone came and told him that the Reds were there and his regiment was gone, so he had been left behind. So he got up and he went out with his gun, and he went out and there was an old man with a gun and a young boy who had a gun, and they were standing there, and he said it was pathetic. And he said they marched into the square, which you can Google Earth, there's the square, and he described to me and us, our family, the tanks arriving. And so there was a big battle in the square of Chernihiv, and he described, and I imagine he was shooting, though he didn't say, but I'm sure he was. And he described the tanks coming and somebody picking off the driver through the slit, and then everyone jumping out of the tank and running to a building to try to get away. And they were picked off one by one, and the last guy who got it had his hand on the doorknob. Mm-hmm. So that was, it was shocking to hear, it was happening again. And it's just all this stuff is happening over again. People are getting forced out, the Palestinians, on and on. It just doesn't end. So, so that's the happy ending. But are there any questions? Yes.
I'm noticing that you borrowed some images from Picasso.
Yes.
Maybe specifically Guernica in some cases? Is that right?
This is Guernica, and that's a COVID drawing.
And that's a war-themed...
That's a
image.
very war-themed image, for sure. Yeah. Come on, questions?
Do you always install them in this order?
Well, I've never...
Or is there an intentional order to them?
I didn't, it's not according to subject or a time frame. It's just according to how it looks formally. Mm-hmm. And when I actually knew I was going to show these here, I had to hang them, well, I kind of had them, I put them up more or less properly by hand without measuring, and I actually reworked a lot of them. I darkened some up, I moved them around until I had something that, looked stable. Yes.
Since you and Susan have been working together, especially, we've had a lot of conversations about your Russian family, my Ukrainian family, the various, civil wars between them. My family moved from Russia from Ukraine to the United States, and then once the family was established, my grandfather was hired by the Soviet government to teach Platinum's method.
Right.
And it was like this back and forth and back and forth where my grandmother thought of herself as this, Soviet queen when she was Jewish and, just didn't match. And when things started getting bad with the purges in the late 20s, she thought that the fancy apartment that they had right off of Moscow Square, was because of her brilliance and, you know, and devotion to Stalin.
Well,
And my grandfather just said, let's get the fuck out of here.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and he left and divorced her while he was on the boat coming back to the United States.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have family left behind, and they're still there. Yeah. Yes.
So got a couple of questions. Always a couple of questions. One is your choice of desaturation, keeping it monochromatic, work. And number two, when I look at a grid this extensive, I always think in my mind, how could I create a flip book with this?
How could you what?
How could I create a flip book?
Oh.
Right. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. Could you? I mean, because they all seem to speak. I'm trying to find common threads. There are obviously, you know, you can see things within the images that have, you know, some kind of connection, you know. But
Well, I think if they're arranged thematically, you know, you could probably do something like that. But I've never really.
I'm not saying you should do it. I just
No,
kind of like that's where my mind works.
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about that. I just did it visually.
Yeah.
That was enough, you know, and there's enough information. So I didn't, you know, and they're discrete in drawings. I didn't, when I was done with one, I did another. I wasn't like riffing off the last one at all. So it was on the nightly news, you know, what was the latest,
Are you still working on these?
not at the moment, but you know, I do work on them. I just have been working on a lot of other things, so I haven't had the time to. Yes.
Well, I was sort of following up on what you were saying. I was sort of reflecting on the overall feeling of them. I've been looking at them for a long time, and the title, and it seems to me that the overall feeling that I get is if it's one big picture is ill ease.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree and disagree because most of your work is that edgy. Your work is always leaving us a little bit like, I'm not saying it's totally unsettling, but it's just like, we're really not sure.
Yeah, well that's, you know.
It's like looking at something that you probably shouldn't be looking at sometimes.
Right.
But you can't stop looking.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, the thing I meant by ill ease is, and it's true, it's in a lot of your work, but it just seems to come together as a whole. It's kind of like a sensitivity that can't quite settle, you know, because the world is somehow unsettling. And so everything is a little bit emotionally up in the air, kind of. And when you actually start to look at so many of them, some kind of dark aspect comes in, like the cat looking at the rats, or, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's interesting when I work on all my work, but especially something that's this small, you know, it's very intimate. You know, I'm at a table instead of at a big wall. 2 more minutes?
Yes.
And so, you know, you get really into it. You know, you're in there and it's just amazing. You can draw with this little pencil and just get all this nuance. So I'm very much, very, very involved with them. I'm not just going through the motions at all. So, yeah, I think a lot of that comes through because, you know, and it's funny, you know, I do think some of them are funny and absurd. So, you know, I kind of like that, yes. Oh.
Gabrielle, I feel this dreamlike quality in all of them. I think when I talked to you before, and to follow up on what Peter said, I feel some of them are kind of like a bad dream, and some of them there's joy in, but there is this dreamlike, almost like a dream landscape that I sense in your work.
Well, it's all made up. So you can do whatever you want. Now it's not based on observation or, you know, reality. Yes.
There's a surreal quality about them, which, you know, this on the bottom, left, right? The cat and the bird.
That's a copy of a Picasso painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also the head that's on the two branches. The head with the moon, the horse,
Yeah.
right there. There are a lot of instances of surrealism, which would make sense if you're guided by your intuition, kind of thing.
If I could interject, a friend of ours pointed out the other day that Barzaghi is a Sufi term for the liminal space between the mind and the body. So it's actually Barzaghi. So that might say it all.
Okay, I think we're done.
Bring all the girls up to the front.
Here for a little bit, any more questions? Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, like, did we get along? Which we did.
Oh, we got to know each other.
This has been really fun. Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.